Sharon Roberson knows what it's like to be one of a kind, but not always in the complimentary sense. Growing up as a military kid in nearby Clarksville, she was bright, athletic, ambitious, and often the only black girl in class. Integration was new. Ingrained attitudes were generations old, with one very memorable and young exception.
My teacher never called on me once that whole school year. And there was a little girl, she was a young girl, Catholic girl, Kathy Kerrigan, and she said, Sharon's hand is up. She had righteous indignation for me being mistreated. And I've never understood why this little girl understood that this was not right. So a lot of people tell me about things that happened that in segregation, well, that's just the way things were. No, there were children, and I can call one by name, that knew this was unjust, this was unfair. And she got in trouble for defending me. But she kept on going. I've never understood that.
As a corporate attorney and now CEO of the YWCA, Sharon's voice is heard loud and clear. Her daily work mirrors the Y's mission to eliminate racism, empower women, and promote peace, justice, freedom, and dignity for all. I'm Demetria Kalodimos. It's Banner and Company. Well, it's good to see you, my friend.
Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. We are talking today during a government shutdown that may end up being the longest ever. With SNAP food benefits on the brink of disappearing, this has to be causing you to stay up at night.
Oh, yes. I'm optimistic that there'll be a solution. However, I think that our society is going to have to make a decision on whether or not we want people to be hungry or not. I think that there are so many people that are thinking that this doesn't affect them personally, that they aren't looking at our broader community.
Yeah. The people that come into your care at the YW, how important is that food card to them?
It's extremely important. The reason for that is oftentimes individuals do not know that they have access to such benefits. And it's life-changing because you have individuals that felt as though they could not leave a domestic violence circumstance because they did not have money for basics, shelter, food, transportation. When those barriers are taken away, they can move to safety, so they get SNAP and WIC benefits. Without those benefits as a safeguard, it makes it virtually impossible for some individuals to leave a violent situation.
And what do you tell folks like that?
All we can say now is that we're hopeful, and we're filling in the gap ourselves, which of course increases our expenses, but we've been so privileged to have individuals in the community to help us. But we tell them we're hopeful that things will turn around. Food banks are overloaded, but we'll do the best we can to help them, because I don't believe that we as a society can tolerate children being hungry. I just don't think we can do that.
And help us dispel some of the myths around SNAP. This is not an easy program to misuse and take advantage of.
Not at all, not at all. I think that that's one of the misconceptions. I think there's this belief that so many people are taking advantage of a situation that they would rather stop it for the vast majority that does not, for that one person that may for some reason manipulate the system. But what you're saying at the end of the day is we as a society are going to tolerate children or people being hungry. If you saw an individual and you knew they were hungry and you were working with that child every day, would you think differently about providing SNAP benefits? I think most people would say yes.
When people hear YWCA, how many people think it's a gym?
Who doesn't think it's a gym? And there's that natural, confusion, YMCA, YWCA, but they're totally not affiliated, but we are very different from that.
And the mission statement, too, is a bold one. And I'm wondering if it's one that has caused you any concern or any problem in this new age of anti-DEI.
Our mission statement, first of all, is eliminating racism, empowering women, promoting peace, justice, freedom, and dignity for all. We are part of an organization that's nationwide, and that is our mission statement. And we do believe that despite obstacles, despite headwinds, that basic mission is the mission of many people in this community and in this country.
In current times, did you lose anyone over the mission statement?
There have been some YWs, we have not. And I think part of that is we have been very bipartisan in our approach to how we get things done. And with that said, we have not lost a great deal of interest in our mission statement.
The YW, of course, is synonymous with breaking the cycle of domestic violence,
Yes.
and that being so important. How much did you know about the DV world when you took on this big old job?
Fortunately, I was a member of the YWCA board, but believe it or not, I was really focused on the empowering women and eliminating racism portion of the mission. We didn't do enough in that regard. I love that we were a Girls Inc. affiliate because I think young girls being strong, smart, and bold fit me. Domestic violence is our largest program by far, but I was not as in tune as when I took this position. I knew it was a societal ill, but as far as that being my primary motivation, it just was not.
What did you learn first, and what have you been able to teach others about domestic violence in the cycle?
What I've learned is that it's truly a cycle, and it's much more complicated. I'm a lawyer by background and training, and I did not appreciate how complex this issue was. The knee-jerk reaction is she, because it's typically she should leave. And it's so much more complicated. It's so many sociological, psychological, financial issues that go into that decision. So it's very difficult to leave.
As you said, you were on the board first.
Yes.
Tick off some of the things that the Y has been able to do. I mean, I can remember when they were first talking about the idea of a shelter, and then there were a few rooms, and now there's really quite a sizable facility.
Yes, we have increased the bed space, first 15 more beds and now 5 more. So there are 20 more than we had 9 years ago.
Really?
Yes, we have
big.
20 more beds, which is significant, but unfortunately they stay full. We have added a children's program. We have added 2 full-time therapists, both for children and adults. We have expanded to include a pet shelter because that was one of the barriers, concrete barriers to getting to safety was leaving your pet behind. We have added a children's program where children get an orientation when they come into shelter because typically half the people in the shelter are children. That's what people do not appreciate, how many children are victims of domestic violence. And all of those things we have done in this period of time. And we're in the midst of finishing over an $8 million renovation, fully paid for by contributions from between the governmental funding, which was really one of the smaller amounts, to private foundations.
When someone comes into shelter, what do they get immediately?
First of all, you get the understanding that you are safe. And believe it or not, the children appreciate that the most. They know they can have fun. They don't have to be awake at night with chaos. They know their mother is safe, especially the older children. For the first time in a long time, they feel secure. We take you through the process of understanding what you've been through because it is a cycle and things are not bad every day. You have a person that you truly love and have a lot of affection for. And you have to understand that this may not be the best situation. However, you get to make that decision. So we walk you through that whole process, the cycle of domestic violence. And when you show someone that is actually a circle diagram, they are amazed. They are amazed.
Yeah, and so many of these things are long-standing family, generational issues.
Correct. If you have experienced domestic violence in a household growing up, you are much more likely to either be a victim or offender. Unfortunately so.
I think it was really neat, too, that the Renew, isn't there a program where you are helping people get out into their own place after living in shelter?
Most definitely. One of the things that we pride ourselves in at the YWCA, our Weaver Domestic Violence Center, is we get rid of the barriers. Pet shelter, we got that taken care of. Therapy services, focus groups, we got that taken care of. Helping you understand healthy parenting, we work with you on that. Transportation jobs, we work through holistically. One of the barriers, once you moved into an apartment, what do? You need furniture, you need, things for your kitchen, you need beds, you need clothing, all those sorts of things. So what Renew does, and we have this, we call them Renew Angel Volunteers. They come in and fully decorate your house, your apartment. And they even take into account things that children love. You have a little child that loves Spider-Man. We'll do our best to make sure they have a Spider-Man bedroom. One of the most touching experiences I've had at the YW by far was one little boy at a Renew, because there's an unveiling when they come in. He says, I can invite my friends over now.
Oh, he was proud.
He was proud of his new home.
And that does a lot for the person in recovery or recovering.
It is recovery.
Yeah.
It is.
It does a lot for their self-confidence that they have a place that represents the growth that they've made.
They can do it. They figure if someone is willing to invest this in me, then I can do it. I can survive. And it's a survival tool.
It's Banner and Company. I'm Demetria Kalodimos. We'll be right back.
I am so excited for this spa day. Candles lit, music on, hot tub warm and ready. And then my chronic hives come back. Again, in the middle of my spa day. What a wet blanket. Looks like another spell of itchy red skin. If you have chronic spontaneous urticaria, or CSU, there is a different treatment option. Hives during my next spa day? Not if I can help it. Learn more at treatmyhives.com.
You have come a long way in your own personal career. I know you went to Vanderbilt at a time, and by the way, go Doors, anchor down.
I know.
Are you just amazed at how good this football team is?
I am totally amazed because, in my lifetime, I graduated from Vanderbilt undergraduate in 1978 and then later in law school. I've just never seen this level of Vanderbilt. There were certain SEC teams that could check the box on what games they would win whenever they saw Vanderbilt on the schedule.
Yeah.
They just automatically assumed that they would win that game.
I know it's exciting for all the alums like you, but you were there at a time when it was not quite opening up very well to African-American students and diversity in general.
It was kind of a mixture. Alexander Hurd was the chancellor at the time. And believe it or not, that I think on a personal level, he was really looking out into where the country was going. And he actually, he's limited in the South. He's in a school that did not welcome black people, African Americans at that time. But I think that, and I'll tell you a reason why. I think that he wanted the school to be more. He visualized the Vanderbilt today that's a nationally recognized school. I was wondering, I said, could I get in this school now? Because it really has grown up to be this huge academic presence. But I was actually voted the first black girl to be voted in as women's vice president. The reason it was women's vice president is because the vice president was always a boy. These are different times.
Yeah.
And so I just felt like I could do this. And I went to the girls in my dorm. It was all, sophomore women's dorm. And I had gotten to know some girls, and I never thought I couldn't. And so when I got elected, and I look back on this, and I said, this was a leap of faith. the female officers got to go to the chancellor's mansion, the home, and have tea with his wife. You have to. And I remember being so excited, but I just went like everyone else. And that's why I was thinking they really could have said, we aren't going to do that. And I didn't feel her treating me any differently from the other girls that were there, of the past women and the future women, and they didn't have me sitting in a corner or anything different. But I thought that was so, in hindsight, I was thinking that was really a unique experience.
How many black girls were in your dorm?
In my dorm, I can count, let's see, I know this is kind of strange. Let's see, Denise, Jackie, me, 6.
In the entire dorm?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Did you feel welcome?
I actually, believe it or not, and I always say this with children, because, you actually are a child in so many ways when you are in college. I didn't feel that. I really didn't. Now, some people have told me they had different experiences. However, we had such a close-knit African-American black community of students. So when things got a little tricky for you, we could go what we actually call the Balsa House, the Black Student Union House, and get together and sort of talk things out because everyone was on the same page. I think our expectations of fairness were very different. There was almost the understanding that things would not be right, that they would not be fair, but we were happy to be there.
And if it was almost fair, that seemed good enough?
I know.
Wow.
But the kids you didn't get invited to their parties, their sororities, but by and large, they were tricky points, but there were some really good kids. Some kids, even to this day, when they come into town for homecoming, they contact me.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I know you had a bit of an eye-opening experience, though, in West Tennessee. Talk a little bit about that.
I had grown up starting off, I went from integration to segregation to integration because the military integrated very early. And so being in that military life, even though as I got older, our parents explained things were not as good as we thought they were, and we had some, straight racism happen even on the base. But with that said, it wasn't like outside of military bases. And so when I first was at Vanderbilt, I was part of a West Tennessee project where you did rights and benefits counseling in West Tennessee. And so moving to that environment of hardcore racism that was ingrained in the people that lived there, both black and white, was just amazing to me. Because I always thought you fought against these things or at least stood up for yourself. But the populations weren't like this. For instance, you had a health department, and the front of the health department, they had the window air conditioners. The front was cool. Now, it's 150 degrees on the best of days in rural West Tennessee.
Yeah.
No wind, no nothing. But the back was burning up. But none of the people that I was working with, you were talking to them about their rights and benefits that were supposed to be available to all taxpayers, all people in the community, but they didn't feel like they could get them. So we were little students, idealistic. And so we said, I was like an air conditioner child. I said, can we move to the front? Oh, no, man, we can't do that. They were so afraid to sit in certain chairs. And there'd be empty chairs for days in the air conditioner section in Brownsville, Tennessee. They would not, in Dansonville, Brownsville, Stanton, they would not move to those front chairs.
So that air conditioner was effectively the back of the bus.
Correct.
That was the line.
Correct.
Wow. Did anything change the time that you were there, even if you spoke to people?
I think that some of the civil rights leaders in the community were very happy we were there. They instructed us not to push the people too hard because they had to live there. Once we were gone, they had to live there. However, they liked the knowledge. And that's when I really learned that you don't have to have a lot of education to be really smart. There were some people there that probably only had 1 or 2 years at best of formal schooling, but some of the smartest people I've ever met. They were incredible. They could put things together They knew how to organize a community. They knew how to get things done, but they just didn't have very much formal education.
What intrigued you about going on to law school? Was there some mentor or some event where you said, I need to be a lawyer and fight for this?
I think that working with those law students, because they were law students as part of this too, led me to believe that you could really change things using the law as a tool. And I love to read, so I always thought that was kind of probably a positive. And so it was just something that stemmed from that belief that I could really change things by being a lawyer.
That was a big undertaking, though, for a woman at that point in time.
Oh, yes.
And especially for a woman of color.
Yes, it is.
In law school class, were you the only black girl?
Actually, there were just two of us. And actually another student that I went to undergraduate school with. Mm-hmm.
And did that prove to be challenging?
It was and it wasn't, because it was in the sense of there's a level of isolation. And I was this weekend working with some high school students that were interested in being lawyers. And the young black lawyers now are talking about when they interviewed with law firms, when they got out of law school, they didn't even interview black students. So we had we were really marginalized within the law school. And that's when the real sexism, racism, that was much more so in the law school than in the undergraduate school, believe it or not. I think that a lot of the men there at Vanderbilt Law School at that time, they don't want to say it now, but I remember them. They felt as though, one of them even said they didn't know why women were at the law school, because all we were going to do is get married and have babies. There was definitely a male-dominated view of the law at the law school.
Rose Palermo, well-known local attorney, was on this podcast early on and talked about the uprising they had to have a designated female bathroom at one point in the law school.
Yeah, I mean, it was like that. And I remember Professor Robert Belton, who actually wrote a treatise, the book that was used at Harvard, Yale, everyone on employment discrimination. And Vanderbilt was not going to give him tenure. And the students had our version of law school sit-in, because this made no sense. Because anyone would have loved to give tenure to a professor who all these other law schools were using his book. He was the expert in an area of law.
Did he eventually get it?
He got tenure.
All right.
He did. He was successful.
I know that your mom was a terrific role model
Yes.
for you. Where do you think she got it?
From her father, believe it or not. I always say both of my grandparents, because there were times in our country where girls were not encouraged to go to school, even finishing high school. And my mother, at 16, finished high school and went to college at a HBCU in Little Rock, Arkansas. And she says she was so excited to go to college because her sister had gone the lane, and she had another sister that was coming up, and she got on the back of the bus. They all crowded into the back seat with, brown bag lunches, because she was leaving her little town in Magnolia, Arkansas, and going to college. But knowing my grandparents had the foresight to want their girls to be educated was very important. And they really, really wanted, they said Letty Mae, that's her name, Letty Mae. She will always tell a story. She died at 91, not that long ago. And she said the one thing that always bothered her was unfairness. She was a top student by far in her high school. So she graduated at 16. But they told her she had to be salutatorian because this boy had to be valedictorian. A girl could not be valedictorian. And that kind of thing stuck with my mother her whole life.
And I know was she an elected official?
Yes, she was a county commissioner out of Montgomery County. Yes, she was. She went to a city that she didn't know anyone, moved up the ladder, ran for office, and ran and stayed in there forever.
Did any of that political stuff rub off on you? Did you ever think about that?
No, I'm not. I've done enough campaigns. I remember we made posters at home for my mother's campaign. That's old school. And going to so many meetings and so many times when she had to talk, I'm glad that she did that because it did provide a blueprint on community service and advocacy, and you could see that. My mother did not care if you had an R or a D in front of your name. If you could help poor children, which was her heart, if you could help move this mission forward, she was going to ask you. And that lesson has served me well because I will ask anyone that could help us keep individuals safe in this city.
Yeah. You think her example probably helped you take the law career and look more towards the service career where you are now in a nonprofit?
Oh, definitely. Oh, definitely. Because one thing she taught us is to be infinitely fair. And I think that a lot of people, even though they say one thing, they really, really, really do believe that things should be better than they are. I have to believe that. And she was always optimistic about change. She was always thinking things were going to be better. And she hated individuals that were hypocritical. She hated it. It's almost better, I would say, that she's not around to see some of the hypocritical things that are being done, because hypocritical things, I mean, that just destroyed her when people were so hypocritical. She couldn't stand that.
Do you miss the lawyering at all? Or I'm thinking you probably use it a lot still.
I do use it a lot because it's a skill set that teaches you how to negotiate. And there will be people who say, well, we can't do that if this happens. Then you could work them toward the middle and work them toward what they do agree on. I say, okay, I don't agree with you on A, B, C, and D, but don't you agree that children need to be safe? Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Don't you agree that individuals should not be under control of another individual to their detriment and often lose their lives? They agree with that. Don't you believe that young men need to be taught that they need to have really what is viewed as healthy as opposed to unhealthy masculinity, and respect women and girls, just like when you want the young man dating your daughter to, respect her? Yeah, we can agree on that. Once you break people down to those little items, don't you think children should be able to eat? Even if the parents aren't doing what they're supposed to do, don't you think that they deserve to not go to bed hungry? Yes, and once they say yes to so many things, they say, okay, well, what do you need?
It's Banner and Company, and my guest is the president and CEO of the Nashville YWCA, Sharon Roberson. We'll be right back. I'm glad you brought up the healthy masculinity, because that is also a program that I think a lot of people don't realize is coming out of the YWCA when we're dealing with men.
Yes. It's our Men Together, and fortunately, we've had a long-term partnership with the Nashville Predators, and it's really designed to bring men into the conversation regarding violence against women. It's that simple. And we do know that there's negative peer pressure to young men to not respect girls, especially in this environment. Why would you respect women as second-class citizens? So you have to make sure that young men understand that they have permission to really treat women with dignity and respect.
So you guys going out into the high schools, or does it start earlier?
We have about 30 clubs going from lower to middle to high school.
And what do these little guys learn?
They learn a lot. In fact, you learn from them. You learn that if you give young boys permission to be fair and to treat women with dignity and respect in an environment with other young, like-minded young men, you have a positive change. You have positive change.
Yeah, at peer pressure in the best way.
Yes.
Yeah. And that changes them as they begin dating and become
Correct.
fathers. And I mean, it's got to be a complete life change.
And it's not a weakness to have feelings.
I am wondering why you didn't go into the military. I mean, isn't your upbringing your
Yeah, most definitely. I don't know. It wasn't the option for me. My father always tells me I would made a great soldier because I was athletic. I'm very disciplined. I enjoy structure. And so I probably would have made a good soldier. It just wasn't for me.
What was your dad's job in the service?
He was 101st Airborne. He was a Green Beret. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So have you done the big wall?
Yeah.
Have you really?
Yeah.
You know, they made us as young reporters
Yes.
the first time we ever visited Fort Campbell.
Oh,
they
really?
said, okay, we dare you to rappel down.
Yeah, you rappel. Everyone does that. All these leadership classes do that.
You do it once, you wouldn't do it twice.
Well, believe it or not, we used to do Fields Day, and this is probably liability knocked all this out. But you would see your father jump to show the kids how it was. You would sit in helicopters to see how they sounded. You did all sorts of activities. I don't think they would let children do these things nowadays, but you just see this, and it was just part of growing up.
You never jumped out of a chopper, did you?
Oh, no. No, they didn't let children do that. But to see what they did and see them way up, and they made you so proud, and your father would come down. This is when they had those dome. They didn't have the modern day string and all that. You basically had a dome parachute. You jumped down, and you had to know how to tuck and roll to survive.
Wow. Was it scary to have a dad in the service? Because you never knew what he might be called to do.
Oh, yes. And my father served 3 tours of duty in Vietnam. And I would say those are the most probably difficult. And I keep thinking, the traumatic part was the bullying that you received when children told you your father was going to be killed. They would say, your father's going to come home in a body bag. I'll never forget people teasing. You already got racism on top of this, and then you have to deal with the body bag because military families were bullied by civilian families in these small towns. That's something that people very rarely talk about.
I've never heard that.
Oh, yes. It was, and they were saying, your father's going to come home in a body bag. And if it had not been for the strong faith and conviction of my mother was a straight shooter, and she said, so we see other people whose parents were missing, etc. And she said, I don't know if your father will live or not, but we're going to pray every night that he comes home. And he's going to trust you to be the best girl you could be. And then he's 96 next month. So I guess it worked. I don't know if it did.
The power of prayer.
But once she told us honestly that he may not come home. But I guess some people may have seen that as traumatic, but it'd been better for her to not lie to us, and we knew this. And some people, one of my best friends from college, Karen Key, her father was a helicopter pilot, and he was killed in Vietnam, and I was just in awe of her. And because she carried on, and her mother said, your father would want you to go to college, et cetera, so she kept going. But yes, that bullying, and when I talk to some other military people about that, especially black families, they say, yeah, that happened. Everyone takes it like, yeah, that just happened during that Vietnam era. And you have to realize the war got kind of twisted. And so the liberal-minded people weren't on your side. And the other people, they just wanted to bully you because you were black and military. And, military people, when they came home, weren't treated well. And that didn't start with just the GIs. That was the families, too.
What years was your dad overseas?
Oh, I was in, let's say, when was I in 6th grade? You count those years. That was one of the years that was the...
But it was like middle school, junior high years.
Yeah. No, that was elementary school years for me, and in middle school, too, but elementary school. I actually have a picture that I always show to my staff that shows me in a classroom in Clarksville that was newly integrated school, and my teacher never called on me once that whole school year. And there was a little girl in that classroom. I point to all the pictures, show all the players, because I point to the people that accused me of doing things that I didn't do. I point to the teacher. I point to really a little young girl. She was a young girl, Catholic girl, Kathy Kerrigan, and she said, Sharon's hand is up. She had righteous indignation for me being mistreated. And I've never understood why this little girl understood that this was not right. So a lot of people tell me about things that happened that in segregation, well, that's just the way things were. No, there were children, and I can call one by name, that knew this was unjust, this was unfair. And she got in trouble for defending me. But she kept on going. I've never understood that.
Do you know where she is today?
I don't know. That's what my husband said. Husband, you need to find her because you talk about her all the time. And it shows a little picture. And the thing about it, she could have had a very easy path because she was really cute, kind of small with blonde hair, but she chose otherwise. And the only thing I could think of is she was a little bit of an outsider because she was Catholic. And that seems like that doesn't make a lot of difference now. But back then, in the South, being Catholic family was you were an outsider.
And you were in a regular county school mixed with the regular population.
Yeah. That wasn't a military school. That was outside the base. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And every day we would go home, my mother would quiz us on the things that Ms. Usry would not let me respond to. She said, see, you knew it. And she told me, she said, you get what you need out of that situation.
Wow. See, so many of us have no idea, but these childhood experiences really embed deep in who you become.
Mm-hmm. And so I always tell people, I said, I learned a long time ago, and one of my good professional friends, she was just wringing her hands. She goes, I don't know how you can take this. I don't know how you can take the way the world is. I said, look, I've had I have a different perspective. I do not think things are going to be fair. I just never thought things were going to be fair. That was ingrained in me from a young age. So I said, you make the best of a situation and you keep the mission in front of you and you work toward justice. I've always been working toward justice since I was a child. So it is what it is. I said, so I sleep well at night. I'm good to go. It's because you have always expected that when you were mistreated, there would be a solution. And there's not always a solution.
Banner & Company is a production of the new Nashville Banner. This episode is produced by Steve Haruch and edited by me. The original music is by Verlin Thompson. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts or go to NashvilleBanner.com. You're in good company. Our last question is in the fishbowl. You get to pick one. And it's always a surprise for me, too, so.
Are these good questions? Good questions. Okay. From Barry Mazur, Mazor. What does it take
for you to keep doing what you're doing?
I think I keep doing what I'm doing because when you see success stories, when you see something that you have directly contributed to, you see a family go to a Renew apartment, you see children saying, this is the best place ever, and they're in a domestic violence shelter because you got someone to provide funding for a wonderful playground, children's therapy. When you see them for the first time realizing that there are people that will help you, then I can get up every day and do this, every day.